Hello. Like that lighting. Hold on. All right. I'm Nicole Ronigan, and I wanted to talk to you today about what my life looked like before doTERRA and what it looks like now. And I was inspired to do this because on one of my team calls, my leader interviewed Neil Anderson, who wrote Being the Starfish. And he talked about what it would look like if we woke up one day and we didn't have any doTERRA oils or products in our home. And we kind of reverted back to that state before we understood about toxins and natural ways to support our health and our immune system and our emotions. So we all kind of had like little panic attacks on the call, and then it really got me thinking about what our life really was like 5 years ago before we found these natural solutions in little brown bottles called essential oils. So I really was like, I never want to go back to that place, but I also really want to celebrate where we've come from. And so I just want to paint a little sketch for you. I'm going to do it in a few different parts so it doesn't become super long. But the first one I want to talk to you about is what my parenting journey looks like as opposed to what it used to look like. So my husband Eric and I had 4 kids in 5 years because we wanted them to be close in age and be friends. And I had this idea that we would do things really naturally. I'm really organized around faith and very loving. I would homeschool them, and I would, read them books, and they would play in the dirt, and it would just be this beautiful, idyllic childhood that I had always wanted. And then we have these 4 little amazing miracles, and they are nothing like I imagined. They were better, but they were very different. And so having a rude awakening, I realized that not only do my kids not fit inside any boxes, they defy that there even is a box. And I love that, but at the time it was very disconcerting. Also, because we were in ministry and we had a lot on our emotional shoulders from our generations past, we had a lot of unlearning to do and relearning at the same time as we're trying to instruct these little ones. And so it was really intense there for a while. All that to say, physically, I had kiddos that had food sensitivities and were not neurotypical and just were a lot of energy and very sensitive and emotional. I was not equipped, and we were sick all the time because our immune systems were compromised. And so for just to paint you a little sketch, before doTERRA, we were sick every 2 to 3 weeks. We were exposed to lots and lots of germs with our schedule and our lifestyle and being around so many people, and then it would just take a while to cycle through all 6 of us. So I felt like, the waves would just crash faster than I could catch up. And so we were just always sick. And then on top of that, we were always stressed. And so financially, it was stressful. Emotionally, it was stressful. Relationally, it was stressful. And then feeling like you live in a fishbowl where everyone's looking at you, even though they were very gracious. I just put a lot of pressure on myself as well, as that I wanted to be the perfect mom and have the perfect kids and all that crap that really doesn't exist, but I didn't know that then. And so because whenever you try to do something that is not in alignment with who you really are and who you were created and designed to be, it creates a state of just feeling off all the time. I was either really low or really stressed and just anxious thoughts and racing thoughts all the time, and then also realized later that some of those weren't even my thoughts because I did not have any clue what being an empath meant back then. So not only am I not super neurotypical, my kids aren't either, and they're all really sensitive and empathic. So there are 6 of us in this little tiny space, and it's just a lot of emotions all of the time with very rigid mental framework and a fixed mindset of how things were supposed to go. So there was a lot of misaligned living there for a while, and that just created a lot of emotional turmoil. And then now I know much more about trauma, and have gotten a lot more education on how that plays in. And if you can imagine, we were a hot mess. So my friend Heidi, she shared On Guard with us and got us from being sick every 2 to 3 weeks to, as we were rolling those oils on bottoms of feet and hands and shopping carts, 3 or 4 times a week whenever we were exposed to germs, we went down to being like every 8 to 10 weeks. And I totally documented this on my calendar because I was like, okay, I want to see if these things really work. And they did work, and they continue to work. And now it's like once a year, twice a year, we might get something. So I can live with that. We are human after all. So I just feel really blessed with the physical and immune support that we found in the oils in the last 5 years. Then also, getting from when your kids are little, there was not a lot of self-care for mom, and a lot of I wore a lot of hats, I had a lot of baggage, I had a lot of self-imposed responsibility and standards that just were not realistic. And so I was trying to be somebody I wasn't, and I really wanted to desperately please these imaginary people that were supposedly watching my every move. And really what it boiled down to was I was really judging myself. And so I had a lot of emotional stuff I was dealing with. And my friend Heidi, we were in book club together, and she shared balance with me. And it was like a light bulb came on, and I was, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this way. And I used to go to my pantry and just hand over fist eat chocolate till my oxytocin levels were, high enough that I could go back into the fray and deal with the kids again. But now I have this bottle that I could just open and inhale and get that feeling of calm. And then I would, roll it on my wrists and just up my forearms, just, and then over my heart, just, okay, get my head back in the game. And it gave me those moment by moment coping skills that, I coupled with prayer and all the other things that I was doing, but really got me grounded and centered, and started unlocking aspects of me as a woman and as a mother, because essential oils access our limbic brain. So very gently, and as I was ready over the last 5 years, I've had these emotional breakthroughs as well. I'll talk about that a little bit more on future videos. But we went from, and I'm very grateful for this, I'm not disparaging this at all, but we went from medicating for just neurological issues that my son was having in the hot mess that I was, to experiencing some side effects that were way worse than the actual issues we were trying to support. And so after a couple years of that, we had no more medical options, no more allopathic options. And so oils became really critical at that time, because allopathic medicine avenues were not working anymore. And so they were actually causing health problems. And so we had to just rely on our natural tool chest. And I'm really, really grateful that we had it. I could send my kids to school with a little necklace vial of oils that would diffuse while they were wearing it because of their body heat throughout the day. I could send them with little roller bottles that I made up of blends that would support the emotional and neurological issues that they were dealing with. They had their little oil pouch in their lockers and stuff, and oils have really gotten us through. Let's see. I also because of that like intense self-judgment that came from, you know, my parents doing what they knew and me doing what I knew, of just parenting with more of a punishment, correction, gotta teach a lesson, gotta correct a behavior kind of model. We found that that was actually causing more trauma and more emotional damage. And so, at least the way we were doing it was not working for our family and our divine design that we were given. And so we kind of shifted from the punishment behavior modification model more to a gentle style of parenting, and I could not have done it, even known or had the wherewithal to know that that was even an option, to explore other options outside of the construct of the thought paradigm that we were totally bought into before. I just didn't even know that there were other ways out there available, let alone ones that wouldn't be so damaging to my kids and to myself and to my marriage. So I was super grateful for that. And then I started reading books, instead of just by like respected theologians. I started reading books from doctors that had backgrounds in neuroscience and psychology and things that I'd been taught were anti-God or whatever before. And I just started really realizing how we were made and how we were designed, and to start doing things that complement our design, just like the oils complement our bodies and support our cells the way they're designed, to start working with nature and with design instead of against it and always trying to change it and correct it and dominate it and all that. That just was not intuitive to me, and it didn't work for us. And so just really embracing like who we are, what our gifts are, what our strengths are, where we have pain, where we have wounding, where we have trauma, and supporting ourselves that way. And really going along with the philosophy that when a child or a person can do well, we will do well, instead of that we are rebellious and just trying to get our own selfish way all the time. I just really had to set that aside and really embrace that when I can do well, I want to do well. I want to please, right? I'm created for these beautiful, glorious things, and that's what lights my soul on fire. That's what feels good. And when I'm acting out, it's just a symptom that something's off inside, and I need support, not discipline or punishment or correction. So we started really, because of learning about the oils and how they work with our design, it just kind of was it taught me to trust this new way of thinking that helped me see that when we work with our design, we actually come alive and blossom according to our blueprint. And so I started supporting my kids in their meltdowns and in their misbehavior or whatever, and realizing that it was just a cry for help. Just like when I lashed out or yelled or disciplined in anger, it was because my trauma was triggered, or because I had a learned behavior, or because I was struggling emotionally and I didn't have words or tools that I could call on. And so we had to put some new tools in our toolbox. So I really learned to listen to my kids, and that really came about from reading a book called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And they have a version for little kids, and then, you know, the age range that my kids are in, and then they have a teen one too. So I'm excited for that because we're almost there with our oldest. So instead of believing that we were bad or flawed or needed to be changed, and that came about through punishment and correction, we started really learning that we are good and that those things are to be celebrated. We are created in the image of God, and those things are to be celebrated, right? And nurtured and channeled and funneled. So I'm learning to teach my kids according to their design and their giftedness, and really show them how to unlock who they really are. And we use oils to support that. And for us, that's looked like when they were really little, I tried so hard to homeschool them, and it was just like herding cats, because I had, you know, a kindergarten and first grader, and then I had all these littles that I had, you know, basically they just sat and watched videos, you know, educational videos, but that just was not working for us. And so I ended up putting them in school, which was actually a huge blessing, that they had adults in their life. It just kind of broadened our tribe. Whereas before I thought that they just needed Eric and I. Just there were other adults that loved them and were rooting for them and that could speak into their life and spoke to them in positive ways and really modeled for us, you know, and we took part in some counseling. I got some counseling. I mean, we just put many, many different and more tools in our box than we had before. And it was awesome. So then fast forward this last year, you know, my stress levels have come down a lot in the last 5 years. You know, I've lost emotional weight, physical weight. I physically feel better. I have more energy, and I've taken on leadership in my company, and just really been able to kind of find my groove in running a household and being a more intuitive mom. And so just feeling more empowered to take my little guy who's 10, who's struggling, and take him out of school for a semester and just really love him where he's at and really oil him every day, and using meditation and breath work and teaching him how to get out of fight or flight and get out of those triggered reactions. And, you know, he would trigger me and I would trigger him, and then the whole family, it would just go boom, boom, boom. Really like establishing a trust bond and really learning his rhythms and learning his mannerisms. And we just disarmed so many of those triggers. And then it like blossomed into the whole family, and our family dynamic is different now. And because he's such a social little guy, I couldn't really give that to him at home. So once he got his legs under him at home, he's just thriving in school again this semester. And I could not have done that without the emotional support from these oils that were just, you know, years and years of pounding on heaven's door for solutions. And this was the answer. And I'm so grateful. And that's why I always share about this stuff, right? Because we talk about what we know. And if something has made a difference in our life, we share it, right? So another thing, this happened last night. I'm so excited. My 12-year-old and we tend to do this a lot because he's at that stage where he's like, I know. And he doesn't listen because he's just real combative. He's got some trauma as well. And so the last couple weeks, he's been coming home, and for an hour, I don't do any work. I just sit with him and we do what he wants to do. And we've been watching The Flash together. So it's something that he totally loves and I'm really getting into now. And we have this time together and it's been awesome. Well, then he had this math homework he needed help with, and that's usually my husband's department. He loves math, he enjoys math, and I'm like, I'm the language, English, you know, right brain, touchy-feely lady. Math is like not my woo. So I like to let people do things that are in their zone of genius instead of, you know, more of this with my son. But we were totally just jiving yesterday, and I was like, I could probably help you with that. It's like dividing fractions. I know that. I can teach you order of operations. So I got to help him with his homework last night. And this morning as I'm driving him to school, I'm like, we could not have done that even a few months ago, let alone a couple of years ago. And I feel so grateful to be able to be in a place that I can help you with your homework. And it was joyful. And he was like, I get it now, Mom, I get it. And I was like, yeah. And I actually learned how to teach you. And it was just this amazing thing. And I'm like, yeah, and we oiled during that homework session. Don't think we didn't. Put a lot of like fur and lemon and stuff on his little spine just to open up his brain, you know, oxygen and all that good stuff. And yeah, he had mental clarity and he calmed right down, and we were able to just do his homework. And my husband started to try to help, and I was like, nope, I got this. And it felt really good. And then another thing too is we had never been able to get our kids to sleep through the night. And what I'm learning about spirituality is a lot of times if you have that gift of God speaking to you in your dreams, you'll wake up or you'll have vivid dreams and you'll understand the meanings of those things. And I've always had really vivid dreams, so I didn't really think anything of it. But my kids, you know, they just said, like, I have nightmares, but really they're just really intense dreams, and some of them are scary. But teaching my kids, like, kind of like Samuel in the Bible, like, hey, what is this dream trying to tell me? And then supporting them with oils to go back to sleep, just like putting some serenity on the bottoms of their toes, or some other like wood oils that are really grounding, that help them like ground down and not be so much in their headspace while they're sleeping. So it's just really fun to be able to support the kids with oils, and then also teach them, like, this isn't bad, this isn't scary, these are your spiritual gifts, and like, let's develop those and see what those are like, and just learning to embrace things without fear and judgment and having unconditional love. That has been the hugest thing in our family. And we have this chalkboard up here, and I used to have like the 1 Corinthians love is up there, and that was awesome for a while, but then once something's there for a long time, you don't look at it anymore. And so I changed it to the Hawaiian, like hopo'opo'ono. I probably butchered that, but it's the forgiveness. And so it says, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And I've been teaching that to my kids on how to ask for and give and receive forgiveness, and just things like that that I wouldn't have even known about before I met other Oilers and was exposed to this different way of doing and supporting my parenting style. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll talk more about the different things that, like my before and after sketch, in other videos. But thank you for your time and attention. And if anything that I said, if you're like, what in the world are you talking about? I want to know more about that. Or just any questions you have, or if you have concerns in your family, like sleep or immune support or emotional support or special needs or neurological support, digestive health, like, we've dealt with all of it. So I would love and consider it a privilege and an honor to help you and your family get to a healthier place where you guys could just really embrace your design and support the way that you were created to work individually and then collectively as a family. So I love you guys. Blessings to you. Have a wonderful day.